The last person anyone expected to walk into that workshop was her. Scar on her cheek, limp in her stride, eyes like she'd seen wars most of them couldn't pronounce. She was quiet, wore her pain like armor. And when the single dad offered her a job, people scoffed. But what they didn't know, she wouldn't just fix broken engines. She'd fix him too. Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're watching from and don't forget to hit subscribe for more videos like this. Let's begin. Don't let her near your kids, one neighbor muttered, pulling her son close. I heard she snapped during combat. Real PTSD case. Another added, voice low but laced with fear. Caleb Monroe wiped his hands with a rag. His 6-year-old daughter, Ellie, perched on the hood of a rusty truck, swinging her legs. Daddy, why is that lady standing outside? Ellie asked, pointing with her crayon-streaked fingers. Caleb glanced up. The woman was still there, same spot she'd been for 3 mornings straight. Just across the street. Hoodie pulled low. Combat boots caked in mud. Left leg slightly tilted inward. He sighed. She's probably looking for work, sweetie. Then give her some, Ellie said simply, as if solving the world's biggest problem was as easy as handing over a peanut butter sandwich. Caleb chuckled. It's not that simple, kiddo. But it was. At least it should have been. 3 hours later, Caleb crossed the street, hands tucked in his back pockets. The woman didn't flinch as he approached, just lifted her chin. You a mechanic? He asked. She looked past him. Used to be. Name? Reese. Army. Marines. He nodded. You eat. A pause. Not today. Come on, Caleb said, jerking his head toward the garage. Got a carburetor with more rust than metal. If you can make it breathe, I'll pay you. And feed you. Reese stared at him for a second too long. Then deal. Inside the garage, the other mechanics watched in silence. Eyes judging. Whispering. But Caleb didn't care. He'd seen enough broken people in his life to know that the worst ones weren't the ones with scars. They were the ones who never admitted they had any. Reese worked in silence. Her hands knew their way around parts like a pianist knew ivory. Every bolt tightened like she was securing a memory. Every flick of her wrist had a story. And when the engine purred to life, louder, cleaner than it had in months, Caleb just stood there, watching her. Where'd you learn that? He asked. She didn't look up. Fallujah. That night, he made grilled cheese. Ellie offered her glitter-covered markers to Reese, who politely declined but smiled. A rare thing. Caleb noticed. It wasn't big, barely there, but it cracked her face just enough to make her look human. Where you staying? He asked when Ellie fell asleep on the couch. Nowhere. Bus stop. Sometimes the church. Caleb nodded slowly. You can use the loft above the garage. It ain't the Ritz, but it's warm. Silence. Just for the night. More silence. Maybe a week. Still nothing. Then a whisper. Thanks. But kindness always has enemies. The next morning, a notice was stapled to his door. She's dangerous. Keep your daughter safe. Or we will. Caleb crumpled it without blinking. She fixed an engine, he muttered. She's not a bomb. But someone else was about to go off. And they had no idea the storm Reese had carried inside her wasn't just war. It was something darker, and it was finally catching up to her. Reese hadn't screamed in her sleep since Afghanistan. But on the 4th night in Caleb's loft, she did. It wasn't loud, just enough for Ellie to hear it through the thin wooden ceiling. The little girl climbed up the stairs barefoot, dragging her faded pink blanket behind her like a tiny ghost. Miss Reese, she whispered, standing in the doorway. Reese jolted awake, sweat pooling under her neck, breath caught in her chest like shrapnel. You okay? Ellie asked, big eyes blinking through the dark. Reese sat up slowly, wiping her forehead with the sleeve of Caleb's old flannel shirt he'd loaned her. I'm fine, kid, she said softly. Ellie stepped closer. You were crying. My daddy says it's okay to cry. He cries when he thinks I'm asleep. Reese's chest cracked open a little. Not much. Just enough. You want me to stay till you fall asleep again? Ellie asked. Reese nodded once. Ellie curled up on the edge of the mattress, humming some tune from her cartoons. Reese watched her, the soft rise and fall of her chest, the way she clutched her blanket like it held magic. That night, Reese didn't dream. By the next morning, word had spread through town like wildfire, soaked in gasoline. She's a disgrace to the flag. PTSD makes them unpredictable. She's dangerous around kids. But Caleb? He didn't care. Reese had shown up at 5:45 a.m. sharp. cleaned every socket, aligned the compressor, even helped redo the paint on a customer's truck. She didn't talk much, but she worked harder than anyone Caleb had hired in years. And when a customer came in limping, wearing a Vietnam veteran cap, Reese didn't hesitate. She shook his hand, held it for a second longer than necessary. "You were in Nam?" she asked. He nodded. 69 Mekong Delta. She smiled. "Then you already know what hell looks like." The old man chuckled. "Yeah, but you survived it." Caleb watched them, heart tight. She wasn't broken. She was battle-tested. But the town wasn't done. Later that day, a sleek black Escalade pulled up outside the garage. Out stepped Mayor Donovan's son, Bradley, chin high, sunglasses too expensive for a man who never worked a day in his life. "Monroe," he said, strolling in like he owned the concrete beneath his shoes. Caleb straightened. "What do you want, Brad?" Brad flashed a smirk and waved a piece of paper. "Notice of inspection. Seems you're violating code with the unauthorized residency above your shop." Caleb's eyes narrowed. "You mean the loft I built with my own hands 30 years ago?" Brad shrugged. "Things change, especially when unstable war vets are involved." Reese stepped forward then, silent as a shadow. "Say that again," she said, voice calm. Too calm. Brad turned. "You heard me." She tilted her head. "You ever been in combat, Brad?" "No, but..." "Ever held your buddy's lungs in your hands while he bled out?" "Ma'am, I..." "Ever been strapped to a stretcher, praying your legs still existed when the morphine wore off?" Brad opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Reese stepped even closer. "Then sit your pretty little rich boy ass down and stop pretending you understand warriors." Brad flushed crimson and stormed out, nearly tripping over himself. Caleb exhaled a laugh. "You just made us both a target, you know." Reese smirked. "Let him come." That evening, Caleb pulled out a photo album from a dusty drawer. Ellie was coloring. Reese sat nearby, sipping black coffee, her fingers still stained with grease. "You got family?" Caleb asked. "No. Friends. Not anymore." He nodded slowly. "You want to tell me what happened over there?" Reese looked at him. Really looked. Then back down her cup. "I lost them," she said quietly. "My unit. All 6. My fault. I made a call. Thought I was doing the right thing. I wasn't." Caleb said nothing. Just poured her more coffee. "You think I'm dangerous?" she asked. He met her gaze. "I think you're hurt. But I also think hurt people can still build. Still love. Still protect." Reese's voice cracked, even with blood on their hands. Caleb leaned back in his chair. "Especially with blood on their hands. It means they've fought." She looked down at her palms. "It never washes off." Caleb smiled gently. "Neither does grease. Doesn't mean you stop fixing engines." But that night, everything changed. While they slept, someone set fire to the garage wall. The flames licked the wooden siding. Smoke curled toward the loft. Ellie's screams were the first thing Caleb heard. Then he saw Reese, already hauling Ellie down the stairs, coughing, shielding the girl's face with her own shirt. Caleb grabbed the extinguisher. But Reese? She kicked the back door open, smashed the power box with a wrench, and dragged a burning tarp out with her bare hands. The fire died fast, but the damage had already been done. The fire chief shook his head. "Looks like arson. Accelerants near the wall. You got enemies." Caleb looked at Reese. She looked back at the smoldering ruin, her knuckles bleeding. "I do now," she whispered. But what no one realized was that Reese wasn't just a mechanic anymore. She was a mother's instinct, a soldier's rage, and someone had just declared war on the wrong woman. Reese didn't flinch when the cops asked questions. She didn't ask for a lawyer, didn't cry, didn't even blink. She just stood there, ash on her cheek, blood on her hands, and eyes cold enough to freeze hell. "Do you have enemies, ma'am?" the officer asked again. "I'm a woman who served 3 tours overseas," she said flatly. "What do you think?" The fire was ruled arson. No fingerprints, no camera footage. But Caleb knew exactly who did it, and so did Reese. The town was quieter the next morning. Nobody said anything to Caleb when he walked into the diner. But everyone looked. Whispers. Shifting eyes. Coffee cups paused midair. Even Margaret, the waitress who used to give Ellie free apple slices, didn't smile this time. "People are scared," she muttered under her breath, setting his plate down without making eye contact. "Not of her. Of what she brings." "What she brings," Caleb repeated. "You mean integrity?" Margaret stiffened. "I mean trouble." He left the food untouched. Back at the garage, the air still smelled like burnt rubber and old paint. Ellie was at school. Reese was hammering up plywood to cover the blackened wall. Her bandaged hands moved with precise fury. "You sure you should be doing that?" Caleb asked, nodding toward her injured fingers. Reese didn't stop. "Pain is familiar. It doesn't scare me." He stepped closer. "But that fire? Someone tried to hurt you. Hurt my daughter. That should scare you." Reese finally paused, turning to face him. "I've been scared before, Caleb. Fear doesn't stop me. It fuels me." He met her eyes, steady. "What are you planning?" She hesitated. Then, finding the people who lit the match, and reminding them who I used to be. That night, Caleb found Reese outside the garage, crouched beside an old military footlocker she'd kept padlocked until now. She opened it like it held ghosts, and maybe it did. Inside, a service revolver, a combat knife, a single dog tag that wasn't hers, and a patch that read, Reaper 7. Caleb exhaled sharply. "You were part of Reaper 7. Reese nodded, expression unreadable. "I thought they were all." "Kia," she cut in. "Except me." He sat down beside her on the cold concrete. "What happened?" She gripped the dog tag in her palm. "IED. Wrong call. I told them to move forward. I should have told them to wait." "You survived," he said softly. "I shouldn't have." Caleb shook his head. "Then maybe you're still here for something bigger." She looked at him, really looked for the first time. "You really believe that?" "I do." Reese's lip twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. 2 days later, the garage reopened. People drove past slower. A few brave ones came in for oil changes, tire rotations, but they didn't make eye contact with Reese. She didn't mind. She wasn't here to make friends. But then Jack Harmon showed up. 6'2", barrel chest, sheriff's cousin, and the kind of man who thought women were only useful if they smiled and stayed quiet. He leaned against the desk. "Heard you're the vet everyone's whispering about." Reese stayed calm. "You need something fixed?" Jack laughed. "Not from you. Just came to see what kind of circus Caleb's running." Caleb stepped in. "You done sightseeing?" Jack turned, raised his hands. "Touchy, touchy. Don't get your panties in a twist. Just worried for your little girl. That's all." Reese's jaw clenched. Caleb stepped between them. "If you ever say her name again." But Reese's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Let him speak. I like knowing what cowards sound like when they're pretending to care." Jack's face went red. "You better watch your mouth, soldier." Reese didn't blink. "I watched my best friend bleed out while snipers laughed overhead. You don't scare me." Jack backed away. But before leaving, he muttered, "Keep her close, Monroe. Women like her draw heat." That night, it got worse. Ellie didn't come home. Her teacher said she never showed up after lunch. Caleb's blood ran cold. He raced to the school, called every parent he knew, drove to every corner of town. Nothing. Until a call came through from an unknown number. "Want your daughter back," the voice said. "Get rid of the vet, or we start mailing her back piece by piece." Caleb's world stopped. He didn't scream, didn't panic. He just looked at Reese, who was already loading her weapon. "Where are they?" he asked. Reese's voice was like gravel and steel. "I have a tracker in Ellie's backpack." Caleb blinked. "You what?" "I don't sleep unless I know she's safe. She wears it every day, hidden in the lining." Caleb stared at her. "You planned for this?" Reese looked up. Her eyes were darker than he'd ever seen. "I've seen how ugly people can be when they're scared," she said. "I've been preparing for this since the first death threat showed up on your door." They traced the signal to an abandoned mill outside of town. The night was heavy. No stars. No wind. Reese moved like a ghost. Every step silent, controlled. Caleb followed, fists clenched, every nerve in his body screaming. Inside the mill, they found Ellie tied to a chair, eyes wide, duct tape over her mouth. And behind her, 2 men, both masked, both armed. Reese didn't hesitate. 1 shot. 2. Precise. Controlled. Legs, not vitals. The men dropped, screaming. Caleb rushed to Ellie, ripping the tape from her mouth. "Daddy," she sobbed, clinging to him. "I got you, baby. I got you." Behind him, Reese stepped forward, gun still raised. "Tell me who sent you," she growled. One man groaned. "Harmon." Harmon said she'd ruin everything. Said the town wouldn't stand for a soldier freak near kids. Reese knelt beside him. "I don't care about your fear. But if you ever touch this girl again, there won't be a next time." She pressed the barrel gently to his knee. He screamed. They didn't wait for the cops. Just left. Back at the garage, Caleb wrapped Ellie in blankets. Called the sheriff himself. But when Reese turned to leave, "Where are you going?" Caleb asked. She stopped at the door. "You need to protect her now. They won't stop coming if I stay." "Your family," he said. Reese looked down. "I'm danger. You're a shield." Silence. Then Ellie's voice, quiet but clear. "Don't go." Reese turned, jaw trembling. "Please," Ellie whispered. "You're the only one who makes me feel safe." Reese broke and stayed. They came quietly at first. A petition was passed around. Scribbled signatures. Whispers behind closed doors. "For the safety of the children," they said. "She's unstable," they claimed. "It's only a matter of time before she snaps." Caleb found a crumpled flyer on his windshield. "Veterans need help, not employment. She's a risk. Remove her, or we will." He didn't even show it to Reese. He knew it wouldn't faze her. What worried him wasn't what people said. It was how they said it, like they were righteous. Like kindness was now a crime. But Reese already knew. She always knew. That night, as Caleb made dinner and Ellie drew butterflies on the table with ketchup, Reese sat cleaning her gun at the corner desk. Movements quiet, mechanical. "You ever get tired?" Caleb asked, chopping onions. "Of what?" "Of surviving." Reese didn't look up. "Every day." Caleb set the knife down. "You could have walked away. When Ellie got taken, you didn't hesitate. You went back to war for her." Reese looked over at the little girl giggling at her ketchup bugs. A flicker of emotion crossed her face. Pain and warmth tangled together. "I didn't go back," she whispered. "I never left." 2 days later, they were served official notice. "You are in violation of municipal code. Harboring a non-certified live-in employee on commercial premises. Failure to comply will result in closure and legal action." Reese read it, folded it, burned in a coffee can out back. "Let them come," she said. But Caleb wasn't so calm. "They'll shut the garage down. They'll take Ellie from me. Say I'm unfit. That I endangered her." Reese went still. Slowly, she walked up to him, put a hand on his shoulder. "Then we end this. No more hiding." That night, she didn't sleep. She drove 112 miles north to a Marine buddy she hadn't spoken to in 3 years. He handed her a USB drive without asking why. "You sure you want this out there?" he asked. Reese nodded. "If they won't let me live with peace, I'll burn the silence down." The next morning, the mayor held a town hall, packed to the walls, and Reese showed up. She walked straight down the aisle, combat boots thudding like drumbeats, burn scars visible beneath her rolled sleeves. People whispered. Some scowled. Some looked away. Mayor Donovan cleared his throat. "Miss Halstead." "It's Sergeant Halstead," she interrupted. "Reaper 7. ID number 452. "We know who you are," he said, voice tight. "That's the issue." Reese stepped forward, plugged the USB into the projector, and played the video. Grainy body cam footage. Gunfire. Screams. Reese dragging 3 wounded men behind an overturned Humvee. Blood pouring from her arm. Calling in coordinates while tying off a tourniquet with her teeth. Holding the line for 6 full minutes until backup arrived. Then the silence. The breath she took when the fight was over. The breath of someone who wasn't supposed to survive. When the footage ended, the room was dead quiet. Reese turned to them. "I was blamed for the death of 6 men. But what you don't know is, those 6 died because I stayed. I refused to abandon them. I fought to the last bullet. And for that, I carry ghosts." She paused, looked at every face. "But I also carry strength, precision, discipline, and a hell of a lot more honor than half the cowards writing petitions in the dark." She stepped forward again. "You want me gone? Fine, I'll go. But know this, when your children need someone who doesn't run, someone who fights, it won't be your city council. It'll be someone like me." She turned, walked out, and the silence cracked like glass. Back at the garage, she packed her bag. Ellie cried. Caleb didn't speak, just stood at the door, fists clenched. "You said I was family," Reese said softly. "You are," he replied. "Then let me leave before they ruin you too." Caleb stepped closer. "Reese, don't you see? They already tried. And failed. Because of you." Ellie hugged her leg. "I don't want a new mommy." Reese's jaw tightened. "I'm not your mommy, baby." Ellie looked up. "Then be my guardian angel." Reese's eyes welled. She dropped to one knee. "I'll be whatever you need me to be." Then came the twist no one saw coming. Brad Harmon, Mayor Donovan's golden son, was found drunk, half-naked in his truck with a stack of arson materials in the back. Arrested. Charged. And in his glove box, a printed map of Caleb's garage, with X's marked at every entry point. Turns out, it was never about Reese being dangerous. It was about power. About keeping a war hero silent. About burying the past to protect the privileged. The town flipped. Public apologies. Local news. Veterans from other counties marched to the garage in support, holding signs that read, "She saved more lives than you'll ever count. Don't fear the soldier. Fear who tried to silence her." And the mayor? He resigned. Caleb was offered compensation for the damage. The garage was restored, painted new. Shiny red door. Fresh signage. And Reese? She stood in front of the new mural they painted on the back wall. A woman in uniform, holding a wrench in one hand and a little girl's hand in the other. Underneath it, "She fought for us then. She fights for us now." But there was one more surprise. A man in a crisp suit pulled up in a black sedan one quiet morning. He introduced himself as Joseph Timmons, director of a nonprofit program called Second Front. "We provide female veterans a path back to civilian life. Leadership roles, job training, advocacy." He handed her a file. "We want you to run the local chapter." Reese blinked. "You want me to lead? You didn't just survive, Sergeant. You inspired. That's what we need." She looked at Caleb. At Ellie, drawing a superhero with a scar and boots. Then back at the file. Her voice was calm. "I accept." The news spread faster than the fire ever had. Local hero Sergeant Halstead to lead veteran integration program. Single dad's act of kindness changes the town forever. From scars to strength. How one woman rebuilt a garage and a family. But Reese didn't care about headlines. She cared about impact. And she had a lot more work to do. The garage expanded within 6 months. What used to be one open bay was now 3. A corner was converted into a small training area. A veteran who'd lost his leg in Iraq now ran the scheduling desk. A single mom who'd served as a Navy electrician taught wiring. And every Friday, the shop was filled with laughter, oil, and second chances. Reese's Second Front program had taken root and bloomed. It wasn't just a place for repairs anymore. It was a place for redemption. Caleb watched it all from the side sometimes, arms crossed, leaning on the wall, heart fuller than he ever thought possible. And Ellie? She called Reese Sarge. Not Mommy. Not Miss Halstead. Just Sarge. Short for Sergeant. Short for safe. One afternoon, a woman arrived at the garage in a high-end Mercedes. Blonde. Polished. Dripping in old money. "Are you Reese Halstead?" she asked, stepping carefully over a puddle of oil. Reese looked up from under a pickup hood. "Depends who's asking. My name is Dana Harmon. I'm Brad's mother." The air stiffened. Reese straightened, wiped her hands. "Your son tried to burn down a shop. Kidnapped a child. You here to clean up what's left of his mess." Dana didn't flinch. "I'm here to apologize." Silence. Reese blinked. "What?" "I defended him when I shouldn't have. Protected him when he didn't deserve it. And I see now, he wasn't a man. He was a monster I helped build." Reese crossed her arms. "Why tell me this?" "Because I watched the footage. Saw the mural. Heard the stories. And I thought, maybe the strongest thing I could do is admit I was wrong." Reese looked past her, for a long time, then back in her eyes. "You can't undo what he did." "No, but I can help fund what you're building." Quietly. "No names." Reese thought for a long beat, then extended a grease-stained hand. "You fund it on our terms. Not yours." Dana nodded, shook her hand, and walked away. No cameras. No press. Just growth. That night, Caleb grilled burgers behind the shop while Ellie played tag with 2 kids from the veterans' families. Reese sat beside him, sipping lemonade from plastic cup. "I used to think I didn't deserve peace," she said, staring into the fire pit. "That I was just a weapon someone forgot to retire." Caleb glanced at her. "And now?" She smiled, really smiled for the first time since she arrived. "Now I know I was never a weapon," she whispered. "I was a shield. And maybe I was meant to protect something more than just battlefields." Caleb raised his cup. "To shields." Reese clinked her cup against his. "To healing." But the town had one more surprise. During the 4th of July parade, they asked Reese to lead the Veterans March. She refused at first. Said she didn't do parades. Said it wasn't her thing. Until Ellie tugged on her sleeve and said, "But I already made a sign." The sign read, "My hero, my mechanic, my guardian angel." Crayon letters, stick figures, one in combat boots. Reese took a deep breath and marched. The crowd didn't whisper this time. They cheered. They saluted. And for the first time in a long, long time, Reese believed it. Years later, when the town opened a new community center for veterans, they named it the Halstead Center. Reese didn't speak at the ribbon cutting, but Ellie did. Now a teenager, she stood on the stage, clear voice ringing out over the crowd. She didn't just protect us from danger. She protected us from fear, from silence, from losing hope. And she did it with grease on her hands, fire in her chest, and a heart bigger than any uniform could ever carry. The crowd stood. Reese stayed seated, tears quietly slipping down her scarred cheek. This isn't a story about a mechanic. It's not even a story about a soldier. It's a story about one act of kindness, a job offer, a warm loft, a grilled cheese sandwich, that lit a path for someone who thought they'd never feel whole again. And along the way, that someone didn't just fix broken engines. She fixed lives. She brought light back into a home. And in doing so, she found her own.